special interview. It's a special interview. Special interview time.
In color.
Hey guys, it's Caleb with Not Art Special Interview with Hushicho.
Hi!
He does a webcomic called Incubus Tales.
Yes.
And I hear a fancy smancy rumor that the end is coming up. Is that true?
Yes, actually, I decided to bring it to a point where I could set it down for a while if I wanted to, but I could pick it up later if I so chose. So it's kind of it's an ending that resolves a lot of things, but at the same time it's also sort of just like a sort of pausing point where later on, you know, when I feel less burnt out, I suppose, I can pick it up again, because I really like the characters, and I still get a lot of people coming on to the comic and reading the comic and saying that they love the comic, and so I didn't want to just say, well, it's over now, especially as it's been going for like 7 years, and it's the longest running comic of its type still running. It actually has been running for over 7 years now, and I'm glad that we're able to go into the final chapter for now in the same month that the first chapter, the introduction, actually was done and posted way back when we were on a site called Adult Webcomic. We've gone through several hosts.
Well, speaking of the first comic, why did you start the webcomic in the first place?
Well, there's a lot of comics out there, especially like adult-oriented comics and mature comics and such, that are pretty people with, like, obviously very comfortable means, and generally kind of, you know, okay
White
lives.
kid problems.
Yeah. like first world problems,
yeah.
You know. And you know, having like mind-blowing sex all the time with other pretty well-off people.
Yeah.
And yet they're constantly miserable, and there's always just, or either that, or someone doesn't quite know what a buzzkill is, and like you'll have someone have sex and it'll be really hot or something, and then somebody will get, you know, like eviscerated or something, like in the next. I actually, one of my friends, acquaintance at the time, was he loved to watch themed porn. Didn't get off on it, just loved to watch them because they were amusing to him. But like, there was this one that he watched that was a generally passable sort of detective story, except after people had sex, they would generally die. Like, they would generally be murdered. And he was like, that kind of killed my buzz.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that.
Like, I've even seen comics that is, you know, have just like massive amounts of nudity of all kinds, and yet the story is so unpleasant that it's just like, well, they are naked, and it is kind of novel, but it doesn't do anything for me because the rest of the story is so miserable,
yeah.
You know. So I really wanted to do something that was light and kind of cheerful and funny and sexy, and didn't shy away from so many of the things that so many of them shy away from. Even when you're doing a comic that does like explicit sex and intimacy, there's still so much shit that people will shy away from.
Yeah.
They'll just be like, oh, I won't do that, and most of it's just like harmless shit, you know, like it's, well, not like actual shit, but they don't tend to do that either, but that, I haven't done that in Incubus Tales yet. I, you know, probably won't do it, but you never know, but I probably won't do it. But, anyway, away from the talk of feces, because that's not what I want in my 60 times, but it's okay if you do, I just don't. I feel like I'm digging the hole deeper every word I say.
We're being reminded of Star Tours, which
yeah.
I was trying to avoid mentioning, but we just keep going somehow.
Every time we end up talking about poop, though, we end up thinking about Star Tours, that horrible story.
Yes, that was pretty bad, but
because when I started Incubus Tales, there was nothing out there at the time that was similar to it. There was no, you know, sort of light, fun time, chuckle, happy, sexy comics. There was nothing. It was, I mean, the stuff that was out there was typically like one shots, and you know, you'll get stuff like that from Japan and such, but outside of Japan, there really wasn't all that much, and I don't even think Ogluf had come about at that point.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's an adult-oriented comic that you know, deals in a lot of different interests, but I don't think even that had come about at that time, and even that kind of delves into dark territory every now and then. But yeah, make a long story short, I basically wanted to do something cheerful that wasn't so heavy as so much of the sexy stuff, that just was like guiltless, fun, sexy times with a satirical kind of feel to it. And I wanted to establish that, they did a different satire every chapter, because I knew I would get sick of doing, just like one single setting indefinitely. So that explains why they constantly went to different places. Each chapter is a different satire, and I do as much as I can with a particular topic, and then I move on.
Well, how did you come up with, I guess, the main character, which I cannot pronounce his name. I always forget how to.
Jean is actually it's funny because when I created him, it was for some little role-playing game. And they had Incubi and Succubi as available characters. And I thought, you always see the Succubus. You always see Succubus. And Succubi are everywhere.
Yeah.
They're always sexy, always portrayed as sexy. And yet, you look at the Incubus, and most of the time they're not portrayed as sexy at all, if they even appear at all. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I want a sexy Incubus that can be fun and interesting. And the first time I wrote Jar, he was a lot more teen angst than he ended up being. By the time of Incubus Tales, I'd played him for a while, and then that particular game had gone away, and then I ended up writing him a bit more, and I decided, that's a character I have that I liked. I enjoyed writing. I enjoyed the character concept, so I'm just going to write him as the main character, and we'll see how that goes. And I developed like a sister character for him, Chana, and a friend's character, Joshua, the werewolf, joined them. And through the years, we've had others pop up. One of whom I invented early on, and then I kept wishing I had added to the group, and then later on I had him come back and had him added to it. But we had Ur, who was made specifically for Incubus Tales by a friend and colleague, and we've had a bunch of different things go on. Diabolus, who joined them in I for Incubus, which is one of my favorite chapters.
What was it? I know at least one of the characters, Hawkeye especially.
Yes.
How did Hawkeye end up being a character in the comic?
Well, it's funny because, and I guess I should explain this for those who are listening who aren't intimately familiar with the comic or the character. Hawkeye is a friend of mine, and his character is since Incubus Tales deals with a lot of gay dudes, it's particularly important to say that Hawkeye, the person, he enjoys the comic. He likes reading it. He thinks it's funny and entertaining, and and that's what I go for. Like, even if the sex isn't your thing, I want to write it in a way that the story is engaging and something you can enjoy, no matter what your orientation or persuasion or what you're interested in, because you get a lot of that in a variety of different stories. And I think a story really succeeds when, even if it has stuff that's clearly for one audience or another, or orientated towards one audience or another, if you can still enjoy that without being in the supposedly the target audience, I suppose. But anyway, he's a very open-minded fellow, wonderful fellow. I adore him, and he's a lot of fun. But he doesn't get the chance to appear in a lot of this, and a lot of people, he's said, don't do a good job of portraying his character. But he always liked how I would portray his character. So when I was doing when I was doing Family, sorry.
It's okay.
When I was doing I wanted to do a special chapter, and it's called Family, and it was like the only chapter that was all audiences. But it was very special. It was a very special chapter. It had a lot of special things in it. It had its usual funny, light-hearted thing, but it also got a bit serious too. And I was very pleased with it. And when I was conceptualizing the story, because it was called Family, and because we had written our characters together, and we'd play games, we'd play like MMOs and stuff, and I'd make Shaw or something, and he'd make Hawkeye, and we'd adventure together. So what we were basically facing at that point was these two characters. Everything that we've done with them has them very close, but they've never actually appeared together in the comics. So I thought, well, I could ask him. The worst he could say is no.
Yeah.
But he was actually really excited about it. He was like, yes! And I designed an outfit for him specifically for the comic, because typically he just wears, like casual wear.
Yeah.
but I wanted to design something, very striking for him, very kind of comic booky, I guess. But he really liked the design. It was very dramatic, very heroic, and he got a very cool entry. But I was very pleased with that, and I believe I've sold out of all of the copies of that. I probably won't have any more printed out with conventions because I don't really do them anymore. But I was very happy that one tended to sell out as a special edition.
Did you ever think of putting them on like a storefront where they basically just print the book on demand and
actually that's what they are right
well,
now.
I mean for like they are now or they were when you had the copies?
They were always before, but they are now as well.
Okay.
But some of the I use two specific print-on-demand services, and one of them is a bit more reliable than the other. The other one sometimes will change around their store, so the links from my store on the comic or whatever may not be valid at one point or another, but I tend to get wind of it and then I change them to update it. But
because I was going to say, if you wanted to wear, I know, yours doesn't deal with furries on a regular basis, but I know Fur Plant, when I bought my copies of Jack, those were print on demand, like as you ordered, and then they, so it took a while, but then they'd print it and, ship everything you ordered to you, and, it was really nice.
Yeah, actually I use print on demand, but actually I would like information about that Fur Plant, and I'm currently looking into, a friend of mine, very prominent in the furry community, and he was saying, you should really think about going back into furry, because, see, I got my start doing, independent stuff for hire for furry, and they've always been very appreciative of original art, original storytelling, indie comics and things like that, because, this is, for so many of them, this art is their identity. It's this character, it's their character, and so there's a higher level, I feel like, in the furry community of appreciation. A lot of artists and art in general, especially, original independent art, and especially more adult stuff, which is just rare outside of that. Most of the time you just get pressured into doing, family friendly stuff. Yeah. Which I hate that term, but you know what I mean. But but most of the time, unless you're working in furry or a very focused kink community or something like that, it is 10 times harder to get the opportunity that other artists get. There's a tremendous amount of discrimination, and it's silly. Most of the stuff is just you get a site and they copy and paste the terms of service from another site. Yeah. They don't really think about it. They don't really read through it themselves. They just think, oh, that sounds official. Yeah. We'll just use that. We'll change a few words here and there so they don't come after us for plagiarism. But that's essentially what they do. Did I answer the question? I feel like I've gone off on a tangent.
Well, I was asking about the print on demand and about furries.
Yeah, that's right.
And we just kind of just drifted into the topic. But now I know you have to kind of direct anybody who's interested in furry artwork real quick. You have a Fur Affinity account, but you pretty much don't use that anymore. Right. Where can they find you if they want to pick up a furry commission?
I am actually acting through my manager, my furry manager. Okay. My friend decided that he was going to be my furry manager. So, but I am actually at Fur Affinity. My username is Foxy.
Oh, okay. So you went back.
Yeah, and he has established that account for me. He handles most everything.
Okay, so he's managing it for you. Okay.
But I can, if you send me a message or something, I can actually send a message through him too. But it's FOPSYFOXY, Foxy. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Okay.
It's either Foxy or Foxy Fox. I'm pretty sure it's Foxy though.
We will make sure what it is when we post the video.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Foxy though, because that was the name that I came up with. But yeah, and I also have I've also gone back to Y Gallery, and I'm very easy to find there. I'm just Hushicho, which is HUSHIC. So, but
anywhere else?
I'm on Tumblr. I do my main blog is also HUSHICHO.tumblr.com. I also have Hushi Art, which is mainly just like my finished art, formal work. And I also have a side blog dedicated entirely to kink and more hardcore stuff called Dicks, Cocks and Wee Wees, which is Dicks, Cocks, the letter N, and then Wee Wees.tumblr.com. So any of those you're interested in, you can find me there. I'm also at Paper Demon, and you can fairly easily find me there. Let's see, where else am I? I'm in a whole shitload of places. I lose track of how many places I am, but
well, the most active places is probably
those are the most active places right now. And I've got a Foxy Tumblr, but that's not where I'm concentrating. I post my stuff up there, but I'm concentrating mainly on Furfinger, my manager. But I'm happy to do whatever kind of commissions people are into, because I have very few limits, and I know how difficult it is to get people to do stuff, especially if like certain kinks and interests and stuff. Because I don't know. I mean, like, show me the money and I'll do it. It's fine, Whatever. I'm.
Put the money in the fun bag.
Yes.
And I'll give you something real good.
Yeah. For 50, What is it? I always say that for 50 I'll suck you. For 100 I'll fuck you.
And then I said something like, for the real money.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that then.
Yes.
But, well, what do you intend to do now that Incubus Tales is ending?
Well, I've actually been working on a bunch of different projects, and it's funny too, because I've actually done some comic work on the side as I've been finishing Incubus Tales. So I actually have, and I've got stuff from like last year, like 50-page comics that I've done and never posted anywhere. And so I'm probably going to post a lot of those. I've got a project coming up called Carnival of the Midnight Moon, and my friend Law is designing the website, and that will be posted. And I've got enough stuff to stick with that for at least a year. So, I mean, it may or may not be something that I do on the long haul, but...
Well, you want to talk a little bit about what that is, or was you want... Okay.
Yeah, it's... I feel like I've got the hiccups or something.
It's okay, I can edit this out if you want to take a minute.
No, I think I may. But I decided to set it up as a sort of a short-form storytelling. No chapter longer than 6 pages. No story longer, 2 chapters for the main stuff. It can still have overarching storylines, but just, concentrate. Because I feel like, especially in webcomics, if you take too long to tell a story, you lose your audience. Or at least I did, especially when it's like mature or whatnot. People want to get their jollies and resolve the story, and But so I've decided to experiment with short form storytelling, and that's really pretty exciting. The main story in Midnight Moon so far is called Warlock After Dark, and it's kind of sort of set in a kind of low budget 90s crappy horror, like think the Witchcraft series. It's about that.
I don't think I've actually seen that.
Oh, they're goofy as hell. But this one is actually, I mean, obviously I have an unlimited budget for effects since comic, but it still has that kind of lovable underdog feel to it, and you have a character who is just, he's kind of the other sort of person, and a lot of characters that end up, getting together because of their otherness, their status and other. And there's also another comic that I've been working called Golden State, and Golden State takes characters derived from public domain Golden Age characters, as well as some of the public domain Golden Age characters. But I'm working on that, and I'm also working on a kinkier version for a kink site project that I'm doing with a couple of other people. But I'll be updating that on my site. I'm not really sure what we're calling the site yet, or else I would, I'd be able to tell you. But I'm, depending on how things go, I may or may not, keep going with that indefinitely, whatever. But hopefully everything will go according to plan, if not better. And I'm hoping most of all that I can get good commission looking into, going back on Y Gallery and the management of my manager doing fur affinity stuff. I've already got some really from furries. I actually was able to do a really gorgeous triptych with this one fellow, and he just loved it, and I loved doing it. It was wonderful. So I'm hoping that it will pick up a bit. I've got an ad coming up for a video now. I already opened an ad on Y. No commissions yet there, but I've got a bunch of fur. We'll see.
So, how did you start, get into art and then eventually into comics to start with?
Well, I always really liked art. Art was something that was a real passion for me from the beginning. And I used to think I'd like to do comic strips like, Garfield or Peanuts or whatever. And I took a course one summer. I always liked to take summer courses when I was little. Well, not little, but young. I don't think I was ever really little. But when I was young, I used to take these summer courses, and this one was how to draw comics or something like it. It was something where I misunderstood the title because I thought it was about comic strips, but it ended up about comic books. And so we studied out of our textbook was basically how to draw comics the Marvel way, and the first release of that, not the modern redoing that they did. It was so good though, and it remains one of the best comic authoring books that I've ever had. But I started to get really into comics after that, and I thought, well, this is interesting. It allows you to tell a story in sequential art, which is later I came to appreciate that as fundamentally one of the oldest forms of conveyance known to humanity. It predates prose. It predates every other form aside from verbal. So it's very impressive, and although it does have its share of frustrations, especially in the American market, it's incomparable. I just really love comics. I really love the ability to tell a story by way of comics. There's so much you have to be responsible. I mean, it's basically like making a movie where you cast and direct and do all the special effects and write all the dialogue and the sound effects and all the rest of the stuff. But it's so rewarding when you create something that is just such a consummate work of art and you can share your perspective with someone.
Anything you would specifically like to talk about that maybe we haven't covered yet?
Well, censorship is always a hot topic. I mean,
well, okay. I don't know what about censorship, but we will now talk about it.
Maybe you can ask me if I've come up against censorship.
Okay. You want to take a minute to...
Why, yes, I have.
you can tell I'm shit at this.
You're really good, actually. I actually have come up against censorship a few times, and I try and take a stand every time I do. And I think it's really important that every artist do it. Whether you do mature works or not, whether you particularly like this particular style or that particular style. Because if you don't, you end up really... It's like that whole give them an inch and they'll take a mile stuff. Because if you let people tell you what you can and cannot do as artistic expression, people end up being afraid and they don't tell the stories that they would like to tell. And I don't know how many works of art we've missed out on because someone was afraid, of getting in trouble or whatever. When it's just a drawn picture. It's a drawn picture of make-believe characters and make-believe land. Get the fuck over it.
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel. Like, even if I don't like something, I don't know, huge impreg or something. I'm not a fan of impreg, but I fully support your ability to draw it and write it and whatever. It's imaginary. If you start trying to govern imaginary crap by the same laws and standards as real people crap, it's bullshit. It's like these people that say, oh, well, it's sort of like fur affinity. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I don't think anybody is under any illusions of how fur affinity is run. You go there for exposure, you go there to be well known, but you don't really get into the administration of the whole thing because it's a clusterfuck. Yeah. But their whole thing with all of their characters have to look 18 or over.
That's really hard to do, especially if you're like me and you like Sonic.
Yeah, and I mean, they're fucking anthropomorphic animals. These don't exist anywhere in the real world.
Why not just censor them because they're furry? They're animals. That bestiality.
I know. It's really ridiculous, because, I mean, you could take that same token and say,
instead of just replace all the Shoda with bestiality or something else.
Yeah, just stick whatever is in there that is being misunderstood, and it's so ridiculous. And people constantly use excuses like, oh, well, it's just promoting this sort of thing. It's not promoting jack shit. If anything, if it ever has anything to do with anyone legitimately interested in these kind of, illegal or, you might say unethical or
Or questionable, I would say.
Questionable ethics, questionable morality, possibly, I don't know. But whatever you would say about this, depending on your perspective, it's at least a harmless outlet. You know, like, it's a picture someone drew from their imagination. And when you start to tell people what they can and can't imagine, and what they can and can't draw based on their imagination, that gets uncomfortably close, in my opinion, to thought policing. Like, I may not get into any of this shit. Like, you're wearing the necrophilia shirt. Like, she's wearing this great shirt, and it's hilarious. It's necrophilia because dead chicks don't say no. It's a hilarious shirt. You may not think it's hilarious. But I mean...
It's appropriate for the season.
Yeah, it's a seasonal shirt. But, like, obviously, Cassie's not going to go out and, like, kill and fuck people.
I would hope not.
I would hope not.
I mean, I would read a story with this in it, depending on what degree it goes to. But that's because I'm interested in it more as a psychological thing. Yeah. For me, anyway.
And I mean, that's part of the point. Like, you can never really know what someone's getting out of it. Basically, when people say, "Oh, this is wrong and no one should ever do it," and blah blah blah. Well, you know, you're saying more about yourself than you're saying about other people, because you're saying basically, this is what I get out of it, and I think everybody gets the same thing out of it, which is stupid. Yeah. That's just stupid. That's like expecting everybody to think the same thing about, I don't know, filet mignon or something. You know, nobody thinks the same. Or like a certain kind of cheese or wine or whatever. Like, nobody has the same taste. Nobody has the same reasons for doing things. And from what I've seen, most of the time, like stuff like Shota or, you know, a lot of the other stuff is based on an aesthetic. It's not like people are actually going to go out and fuck a dog or, you know, molest someone or something like that. All of it is like an aesthetic that people in no way think is connected to reality. And
well, it's like when... I make no secret about liking the webcomic Jack. Or liking, you know, having an interest in reading and, you know, viewing non-con and things like that. But nobody that I'm aware of who enjoys that comic, reads that comic, or even maybe engage in some of the stories and things that, you know, involve non-con or whatever. Nobody does that. Yeah. There was one guy on the forum who tried to say, he was like, all this kind of stuff is really what he was and wanted to be, and you know what pretty much everybody else did in regards to that guy? We ignored him, and then he eventually got fed up and left because he thought Dave had no balls. Yeah. You know, Dave wasn't what he pretended to be, and he left. And we were all just like, if you're really that crazy, I hope you go get help. Yeah. You know, and that's really all that was like one guy out of thousands of people that read the comic over 10 years or more.
Yeah, and most of the time when you get people like that, they're either actual children or so immature that they don't really understand the gravity of what they're even talking about.
It's like when we read on Bad Fanfiction Theater, like these people who want to be gothic, but they don't understand anything about actually being gothic.
I know!
Or anything that they're trying to portray. Yes! They, you know, we mentioned the whole, the Wiccan thing in My Inner Life. Yeah. The pagan stuff. And that's people who act like that don't know really what it actually means to be pagan.
Yeah.
Or their practices and the things.
And so much of the writing, like we were reading, you know, it was very accurately portraying the posers, you know, like the people that really don't know what they're calling themselves, what they're really supposed to be looking into.
Yeah, they're just reflecting a stereotype, but they don't really understand what the real thing is.
Yeah, they don't understand at all. So, I mean, it's just like, I don't know, but yeah, censorship usually comes, in my experience, from a position of ignorance. Ignorance and hatred are the most common origins I've ever noticed for censorship, and a lot of it is stuff that reflects most strongly and most negatively on the people that try and push it on others, I feel like.
Jace does not care.
Yeah, I know. The cat does not give two fucks.
I'm okay with censorship as long as it doesn't go too crazy. It's more like in my opinion, that you should better label what your comic is or anything is or isn't, but at the same time, you should police yourself if that's not something you want to go and watch.
Well, I don't really consider that censorship though. I think that's just being decent. You know, like if you're writing something that has stuff in it that may not appeal to everyone, you know, just say, look, this has got this, this, and this in it.
Well, see, that's why you have warnings and you make sure they're properly displayed.
Exactly, and I agree with that. I think, like, some things I disagree having to label, like, if, you know, like, I don't like conflating mature content with anything non-heterosexual.
Yeah.
You know, like, if it's just like a romance or something, get over it. You know, like, it's two dudes, it's two chicks. It's a chick and a dude and a chick.
Well, if you're going to be like, it's got homosexual stuff, well, you're right. By default, I should also say, it's got some hetero stuff. Yeah. In case you don't want to see a dude and a chick making out.
I mean, exactly. Anyway, but, yeah, I think it's fair to warn people. But if you're gonna warn them about things, if you're gonna warn them about things, warn them about everything. Don't just play favorites or cherry pick or whatever. But if you're not gonna warn them, you know, I mean, that's kind of dickish, especially if you have stuff in it that may traumatize people. Like that's generally what I draw the line on. Like, I don't tend to warn people about, you know, like straight or gay or bi or queer or whatever. But if there's, you know, if there's dicks out and bodily fluid squirting, you know, I may want to say something, you know, and if someone else is doing like shota or something, or lolly, or someone's doing like guro or something like that, you know, like characters die in a grisly way, you know, or if somebody has sex with a zombie or something like that, you know, you might want to warn them, because otherwise you're really shooting yourself in the foot too, because people get upset and then they lash out, and then, you know, that can get you in trouble too. I mean, especially if you're on a site where it's hosted and you know, someone's like, well, I read this and there weren't any warnings and I'm so upset right now and oh my god.
Yeah, because chances are you're not going to get a nice person be like, hey, author, I enjoy your story up to a point, but, you know, maybe you should really say something like somewhere on the front of the comic that this contains so-and-so, and that people might not be comfortable with just that suddenly in their face.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
like one of the things my comic has in it is non-con. I mean, it's so you know, everything is fixed so that you can't really see it, but it's pretty obvious what's going on, you know, and that's one of the things, especially when I started submitting it to Dream Magazine, was we have to do like a character and summary page. And so one of the things I put at the very top that people are going to see first in the middle is, warning, this comic contains.
Yeah.
And I'm like, everything that could be offensive, I need to put it in there, like language, sexual content, religious things. Some people are bothered by religion. I mean, I think that's silly, but I could understand to a point.
Well, you know, and there's so much, like, when people want to read something, sometimes they just want to get away from thinking about serious topics, you know, like politics and religion, or, you know, even sometimes sex and things like that. So I can understand when people want to be forewarned. I
have no problem.
As long as it doesn't, you know, limit how I can express myself. But I think it's great on sites like Paper Demon, for example, when if you present, you know, like a compelling case for, hey, you know, there's no real reason to not have this. Why don't we just have a filter so that people that don't like it can just turn the filter on? And, you know, I think that's much better, because then you know, the people that don't want it don't see it.
Yeah.
It's just like these people that bitch about this or that, you know, series or whatever. Who is holding a gun to your head and making you read or watch this series? Like, unless they have done something, like this new Constantine series, which they probably call Constantine wrong. But
I called it Constantine.
Well, see, you would think that, but if you know the comic, you know, and they're trying to be, you know, real comic-y and all this stuff. But like this new Constantine series, I think it was the director, the producer, some asshole connected to the production went out of his way to say that, like, they wouldn't be portraying John as bisexual, despite the fact that the character has been bisexual from the very beginning, and that it was never a really important part of the character anyway. And I'm thinking, you know...
Yeah, it's kind of important, because what if he wants to date a dude or a girl? It's kind of important to know why he's switching back and forth.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it never comes up in the series, you are going out of your way to alienate people and saying, I'm proudly straight-washing this character who is one of only a handful of bisexual characters that are known in media. It is actually an epidemic known as bisexual erasure, which means that, like, so often bisexual characters are either treated as straight, gay, or invisible, non-existent unicorns. And, like, I can see something like that. Like, if it's going out of its way to involve you in that, I can see people being offended by that. Although in that case I would also say don't watch it.
Yeah.
But in that case, don't watch it and let people know why you're not watching it. But like, if it's just something that the content itself, like if it did have John being, openly bisexual and you didn't want to see that, don't watch it.
Well, even if so, I mean, it's still stupid that you would choose to do something like this, but if you're so worried about the whole bisexual thing or even the homosexual thing, especially with a character as bisexual, just give him a girlfriend. I mean, that's really sad that you would just do that instead of actually thinking about would this make sense or be a good idea.
I mean, and I don't think anybody would have minded so much if they just never brought it up.
Yeah.
But when the dude was like, it wasn't a big part of the character, so we're doing away with it. That is the dumbest fucking thing you can ever do. That's so stupid, and it's offensive. Yeah. It's like, like I said, this is an actual epidemic with like a term for it. They've invented a term for it. It's bisexual erasure. And if it's that important, if it's that widespread, then this is something that you definitely don't need to do.
This is like the singular mentality where people think there's only one thing you can be at any given point in time, even though that is totally not true.
Yeah. Well, it also you can also bring heteronormatism in it and heterosexism.
Yeah.
Where you presume that by default that heterosexuality is like a default state or something until proven otherwise. And it's like, why should people have to feel like that?
Yeah.
That's stupid. Why should people have to feel like any character has any particular orientation, until it's proven one way or another? And there's so many things you can say to this proof. I'm doing drama quotes with my fingers. Like, I know plenty of gay dudes who, due to social pressure or whatever, they married, they had kids. I mean, some of them stayed married.
Yeah.
A lot of them got divorced when they finally came to terms with the fact that, they were gay and it was okay and, that they could be in a place where they could, be themselves. But, I mean, you can't really prove one way. I mean, and especially with characters, like fictional characters, like, what the hell? Tomorrow I could go out and say, Superman just sucked a big dick and he liked it. Because, you can never fully portray every thought, impulse, and feeling of a character in fiction. So you could easily say, well, he had all those feelings for Lois, he had all those thoughts, but Jimmy bent over one day and he really wanted to tap that. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, it could be shit that they haven't even covered. But I mean, for so many of the decades of these long-lasting characters, they wouldn't have even thought about it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have even been in there. And these characters have existed for so long, it's just like, of course they're not going to talk about it in those early stories.
Yeah.
They might imply it, or might innocently, accidentally, imply it, but...
Like Joker's boner.
Oh my god, it was a bevy of boners. It was a boner-palooza. Bonanza. Bonanza, yeah. I think we've gone on way too long.
It's okay, I'll probably see some of the
We're talking about boners.
Well, hey, I was the one that mentioned
it. Hey, Incubus Tales, boners, it's kind of related.
Yeah. But I do understand that whole, like, because that is kind of the mindset everybody has, like, you're straight until somebody says otherwise.
Yeah.
And then, admittedly, that is how I think, but then again, I'm also usually slashing guy character A with guy character B, C, and E. So... Yeah.
Well, I mean, so much of it's inherent in society, like social interaction. Basically enforce that, assume someone is heterosexual unless they tell you otherwise, or unless it's made, clear they're not, which a lot of people don't ever examine. They don't even think about. They don't even think about, hey, that's kind of presumptuous to me, or maybe that's kind of offensive. But also in the society, we're still getting out of the phase of gay being an insult. Questioning someone's sexual orientation being like impugning on their masculinity or something like that, which is ridiculous. But I'm not a lesbian.
And I am not gay.
Nobody's going to get that but us.
Well, if they're familiar enough with me, they'll realize that I keep being confused for a lesbian somehow.
Yeah.
Even though I'm totally not.
Yeah, and I keep getting confused. Like, they keep getting us confused in terms of gender. I don't know how it happens, but it happens.
The British guy is a guy.
Hi, I have a penis.
And I don't. I'm Caleb. I'm pretty sure I don't have a boner.
People have known me for months and months, if not longer, and they're surprised somehow to know that I'm not actually a woman. I don't know how this works. Like,
well, maybe it's
really
the long
don't.
Hair.
Maybe. I don't know. It freaks me out, though.
I mean, I've never seen you put makeup on with the exception of at shows.
Yeah, but I do put them on at shows. I mean, I do put makeup on at shows.
Well, I mean, that's different because that's a show and not just Well, you wear a little bit, but I think that's just a little bit of powder on your face, don't you?
Sometimes. I used to. I don't so much anymore because I got lazy. I was just like, you've seen me in short pants, so it doesn't matter anymore. But yeah. I mean, it doesn't really freak me out to be mistaken for a woman or something like that. It freaks me out that people that I've known that long would mistake me.
Yeah. Well, it's like that one time. I was talking to Dave. He was streaming, and somehow we got into a conversation about something, and Bryant is just like, "Oh, hey, Caleb," and I'm like, "Hey, how's everybody?" And somehow Bryant, whatever we were talking about, and Bryant goes, "Hey, Caleb, you're a lesbian, right?" And I'm just like, no. He's like, "You're not?" "No, I've never been lesbian. At all." He's like, "Well, why did I think you were lesbian then?" I'm like, I don't know. I even went out with one of the other Formites. And we even posted that on the forum. You did? Yeah. Did you remember Black Viper, right? Yeah, I remember him. I ain't seen him in a while. You went out with him? I'm like, yeah, I went out with him.
I don't know how people get us so... Well, one time, and this is actually really funny, because you know how I like to put my hair up in a bun. It's one of my favorite things to do. I had my hair up, and I was eating... I had gone out for lunch with my mother's mother, not the grandmother living now, but the one that passed away a few years ago. But we were out for lunch, and I had just gotten over a head cold. Just like, snot everywhere. It was horrible. But
it was like mine when I was just like, chill.
Probably, yeah. But the waitress came from behind us, and she said, How are you ladies today?" And I was just like, I'm very whatever about it, because I don't care. I feel like, if they think I'm pretty, then that's great. I'm
well,
happy.
You are a lady.
Yeah, I am a lady. I may not be a woman, but I'm a lady. But anyway, I was trying to be polite and answer, fine, thank you. But there was so much drainage, so much sneezing. My voice sounded like I'd been chain smoking for 50 years. I said, "Fine, thanks." And I didn't really mean to. And she was like, "I'm so sorry." I'm really not upset. My voice is low. It was the worst possible mistake to make at that point in time, because my voice was so low and raspy. And
"Hey, Harley."
And that was Caleb's horrible Joker voice.
"Oh, Holly, you know just how to treat me good." You'll never see the Joker the same ever again.
Someone needs to hack in that soundbite to Injustice Gods Among Us, so that you can play as Joker, but with Caleb's voice. It would even be great if someone just edited a video and put a "Hey Harley."
"Hey Harley." Where'd you put my laughing cigarettes?
Best worst Joker voice ever.
What do you want to say to everybody who's been with you up to the very end of Incubus Tales and will follow you beyond Incubus Tales?
Mainly, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. I love you all. I appreciate all your support over the last over 7 years. I mean, it's like so many things in my life have happened over the last 7 years, and it's just amazing to think that so many of you were there for me the whole time, you know, or most of the time, or even some of the time. Like, even if you're just hopping on to, you know, give for this last stretch, you know, the home stretch, it's wonderful. It's mind-blowing that it could be around for that long and be as appreciated as it is. In fact, it kind of blows me away that so many people read Incubus Tales, and I've actually had so many people, you know, come to me and say how much they enjoy the comic and how much they'll always enjoy it. And it's always nice when someone new discovers it and is commenting through and saying, "Oh, this is so good, I love it, I love it." But did it stop?
Go ahead.
Oh, but thanks very much for supporting. It wouldn't have even gone on this long if there hadn't been the support, and it's so special. It really does mean a huge amount, and especially all the people that have taken the time to contact me personally over the years, and even the people that I've, you know, that have dropped off the face of the earth. Even if you commented at one point, even if you wrote me a letter at some point, commissioned me at some point, or, you know, when I was still doing conventions, if you came up and said, "Oh, I love Incubus Tales, you know, I read Incubus Tales," that's the sort of thing that keeps all of us going. Without that, it's so hard to keep going because you don't know if anybody appreciates what you do, and you don't know if anybody cares. But I've had a wonderful, wonderful group of readers and friends that I made from readers and people I've met through the comic, and so thank you all, sincerely, because without you, there wouldn't have been an Incubus Tales at this point. We probably wouldn't have even got a formal ending, because I would have just been like, well, fuck it, nobody reads this anyway. But no, really, I think you should do most stuff for yourself first and foremost. Like, write for yourself, draw for yourself. But it is difficult sometimes. Like, sometimes if you feel like no one's appreciating what you do, it's difficult to keep going. So I really, really do appreciate all the support. I really appreciate everyone that's read Incubus Tales, everybody that keeps reading it, everybody that joins us at the last minute, everybody that finds out about it afterwards. I just really appreciate it all, and I can't thank all of you enough, because there's just not enough thanks to go around for that. But I'm happy that you enjoyed the series. I'm happy that you continue to enjoy it, and I hope that people will enjoy it for a very long time.
So I'd like to thank Hushicho for coming and talking about his comic, and to congratulate him on finishing it instead of being like most authors and just whatever the fuck and leaving it be.
Well, you know, though, I actually have come to have kind of a high distaste for the word hiatus.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, it's just someone using the word,
yeah,
saying, "I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm not going to come back to it."
I mean, some people might be well-intentioned, but, you know, eventually, after a while, you kind of forget it's there, and you go do other stuff, and you never really come back.
I mean, like, be honest with yourself, be honest with your readers. If you don't feel like doing it anymore, just say, "Look, I'm doing this for free anyway, I'm not going to do this anymore." And it took a long time to decide to put Incubus Tales down, even for just a short time. I don't know how long it'll be. I don't know if I will go back to it. I probably will, though. And you can see the characters. You'll be able to see the characters in another comic done by my studio partner Tsutsumi, called Praying for Obsolescence. And that is at pfo.comicdish.com. And the Incubus Tales characters will be appearing in that, because the PFO characters have appeared in Incubus Tales, and the characters know each other, so they'll be relating to each other in there. So if you haven't gotten your fix of them after the comic is resting, then you can always tune into Praying for Obsolescence, and it's my favorite science fiction story. It's an amazing comic, so I encourage everyone to check out Praying for Obsolescence, because it is a superb comic and a work of art. But no, the characters never will go away. They'll still persist in some way or another. And, you know, the Midnight Moon thing has been so that it has a theme that would be very supportive to any of the Incubus Tales characters coming back, so people shouldn't really worry about that. I love the characters too much to give them up forever anyway.
They just may be reincarnated into other things.
Well,
maybe not reincarnated, but they'll pop back up.
Yeah, the characters will pop up in other stories. I'm not going to get rid of them or anything, or transform them too much. But they'll be themselves in other comics,
Hi, you haven't seen me in a while. Bye.
Yeah. Because I've got so many characters that are really good characters that could be used in other things. They'll pop up somewhere else.
So where can people find Incubus Tales?
If you'd like to read Incubus Tales, it's available in its entirety online for free. Simply go to incubustales.com. INCUBUSTALES.com.
I'm Caleb.
And I'm Hushicho.
And this has been the Not Art Special Interview Time.
In color.
Bye-bye.
Bye.